Alrighty, well, here we are on ride 13, and I'm really excited to go out today after our ride a couple days ago in the indoor barn. We're going to still use the same equipment we had on in there, and my plan today is, now that we've established a few relationship things together, you know, asking him for that flying lead change, going out like we have when it's really cold. Now I'm going to start working on his work ethic, and this is something I do with all the colts across the board that are here. You know, at some point those horses have to leave the yard like they're going to do a job. At some point when these horses are unloaded out of the trailer, when they're at a barrel race, a roping, a ranch versatility, AQHA show, a trail ride, they have to get out of the trailer, and you have to be able to just step on and ride off. And they got to be able to... We're going to head out. We're going to go ride in the pasture and try to have the same kind of ride out in the pasture like we did a couple days ago in the indoor, and see what kind of horse we have today. So I'm going to get on here. He's not been warmed up. I saddled him up. The time that it took me to put my half chaps on, put my helmet on, that's the only time that he's had to stand in his saddle. So we're going to just testing him again today. So one of the first things I want you to notice here is that he doesn't exactly move in a straight line out, and that there's a couple of things at play here. First of all, work ethic. He's trying to learn, you know, what speed I want him to go when he heads out of the yard. And the other thing is their lack of balance. Colts do not have balance, so just like they can't hold a circle for an extended period of time, they can't hold a straight line for an extended period of time. And you always have to be aware of whether they're getting heavy on one side or the other when you're working straight lines with them in order to correct them. Otherwise, they will get stronger on one side or the other just because you've allowed them to have imbalances.
Let's go. Let's go!
Weatherby, come on! Weatherby! Weatherby, let's go! Come on! Okay, come on! Sweetie, come on! Okay! Good God!
Weatherby!
Come on, baby!
Come on!
Weatherby, come on! Weatherby, come on! Weatherby, come! Keep videoing this. Come on, Beanie.
Move your horse a little bit so you can see the dog.
Come on, Weatherby, let's go. Come on, Beanie.
Let's go. Come on.
Come on. Good God, man. Hey, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come on! It's too hot in there for you. Come on! Good Lord! Okay, that was probably 2 minutes of your life you'll never have back, watching me beg my dog to get out of the pickup and come riding with me. But, you know, I just wanted to show you some of the antics that these horses have to get exposed to and get accustomed to here. And a lot of times what I do is I just leave a door open on the pickup and they jump in and out as they please. And if you've ever had a dog jump out of the pickup when a horse wasn't expecting it, you know that it's not very much fun, and they do spook, and sometimes it's pretty dramatic when they do spook at that. So it's just another thing for them to see and be exposed to. This pasture that I'm working in right now is one of the hay pastures here at Lowing Ranch, and after they've hayed it for the year, I usually can get some pretty good riding in out here, work on the flat, out in the wide open, you know, not too unsafe. There aren't very many holes or rocks or anything like that, but there are little tufts of hay that we have to work through out here that's growing up, and so he does have to pay attention to his footing. And I'm allowing Charlie to ride with me out here, and you know, it is what it is. He's a pain in the butt, and he's really annoying, but if this colt can handle distractions like Charlie doing his shenanigans out here in the great wide open, then you know what, he's going to be able to handle a lot of other things in his lifetime. And so there are a lot of colts that I allow Charlie to ride out with me or ride in the arena with me so they can be exposed to that. I'm starting out by trotting big circles, big figure eights, showing him what his perimeter is, and right here I'm trying to get a little bit of a leg yield before I change direction, so to get a bit of a counter arc before I straighten him up to go the other direction. So that's pretty much what I'm doing in this big area. I set my perimeter first, say this is the area where we're going to work, and be responsive to my legs and to my hands. Now, if you notice that I changed my saddle pad today, well, I did. And actually, I kept the half pad underneath, but I put the blanket over top. Now, the combination makes the Super Stick, or the S4 design from Gen X Equine, and what it does is give me more precision as a rider. It keeps me stiller in the tack. Of course, I still have to use my core, use my legs, use my calves on him, but it's going to keep me stiller up there, so he doesn't have to work as hard to support my imbalances. And for a better explanation, I'll include a few links to the Gen X Equine videos that I've done of the saddle pads. This particular pad is not a combination that I like to use for trail riding. It's something more of an arena type pad. It's very, very efficient in timed events. So when it comes down to thousandths of a second, that's where I really like this particular pad. Now, I'm working on some basic handle here. I'm doing some inside rolls out the opposite lead. Right there initially, he picked up the wrong lead for me. I just break him down and start up again. No big deal. Don't make a big deal out of it. You know, you only have so much control when you're in an outside setting like this, so you kind of have to make the best of the situation and not pick a fight with them. We are able to lope quite a few more circles outside than we are in the arena, and I believe that's mostly because he is an outside riding kind of horse. And anytime horses that are raised out are kept in an arena situation or in a round pen situation, you lose that natural forward ambition that they have. And so when he broke down to a trier, I was trying really hard to push that right shoulder over and elevate him, and then he picked up the wrong lead on me here. Just gonna back him off, break him down, set him up again, and ask him to take that right lead. You know, and that's one thing you lose when you ride out like this, is you lose that structure of an arena setting, but by the same token, you also learn where your holes are a whole lot easier. So that again, it's a diagnostic tool. You go in and out and in and out, and you see what you need to work on. I'd finally loped him enough out here that he was starting to really kind of look for the stop. And when I found that I was driving him more with my body, I went ahead and quit riding and let him come to a stop and then ask for the backup. And that's one technique you can use when you're riding out like this and they have a little more ambition. You can lope for a little bit longer, and that way it's easier to work on that stop when they're actually wanting to stop. Here's another opportunity to test him. I needed to dismount to tighten up his cinch, and I also needed to pull my ear beanie off because I was getting hot. Now, I don't think enough people pay attention to little details like this, whether a horse is going to stand still for them, while there may be other horses out in the pasture somewhere, across the fence, they're close to home, there's a dog standing there being annoying. I don't think enough folks pay attention to this, because here's another opportunity to gain trust with this horse and have a willing partner. And I think as a whole, the equine community could pay attention a little bit more to little details like that, because if you can't do something simple like that, there's a lot bigger fish to fry out there that you're not ever going to get done. And I hope that makes sense. I asked JD to call Charlie back over to him so I can work on some really specific maneuvers out here without distraction. And while I'm playing game over with him, I'm going to ask him for some 360s, and I'm also going to ask him for some turn on the forehands here. I'm going to see how well my lateral is out here without the crutch of an arena rail or a round pen rail or an indoor arena wall. I'm just going to see how good it is, because I'm going to set him up to do flying lead changes out here. That's what I was feeling this particular day. The great thing about having a wide open space like this to work on these techniques is that you don't have to drill them in one spot. It never gets boring. You know, you can walk out of them, walk in a straight line for a little bit, and then put them back into another 360. And you know, they don't get to anticipate like they do in the arena. You know, we all have our spots in our arena where we like to do specific maneuvers, and the horses pick up on that, and they know that. And you guys all know you have your spots, because I have my spots in my arena too, that I'm more comfortable doing a maneuver. So it's fun to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and try something maybe that you're very capable of doing in a different area, and it kind of changes the scenery a little bit, and maybe you find some holes somewhere in your training. I don't know, just give it a try and give me some feedback and let me know. Here's where I start asking him for a turn on the forehand, so I'm trying to get control of that hip, kick that hip over as I need to. I need to be able to have control of the hind end and the front end mostly. You know, somebody will argue with me that they like to have control of the hip. I like to be able to control this hind end. For me personally, in a flying lead change, I can get the front end to switch pretty easily. It's getting that hind end kicked over is the tough spot. So when we look back to our very first ride that we did on this colt, what did we do? We did turn on the forehand. That was one of the very first things that he learned in his resume of things that he was going to be taught how to do in these first 20 rides. And so now I'm asking him to be more responsive in that turn on the forehand and kicking that hip over. And we are practicing all of these techniques pretty quietly, you know, pretty well long and low, head kind of nod and bob and quiet. He's not anxious, he's not pissed off, he's not mad. If you have a horse that's getting mad doing this, we need to kind of reevaluate and back off and change a few things. Probably go back to drop to trot lead changes until he wants to be really quiet. But you kind of mix them in by playing game over a little bit and then ask for that maneuver. And it's really effective that way, because when a horse is calm and quiet, they're going to be more apt to learn it than they will when they're upset, worked up, mad, angry, spooking, whatever. That's when the learning takes place, is when they're cool, calm, quiet, collected. Now I'm setting him up to set the perimeter of where I want the flying lead changes to take place. Again, so I'm very specific about kind of where I want him to work through. I'm also kind of evaluating my ground here too. Whether you realize it or not, I'm kind of picking the places that don't have as much tuft of grass growing up, the places that are a little bit flatter and probably grazed off a little bit more. And I'm just gonna circle him, and then I'm gonna change my weight. And I didn't set him up very good right there. And we're gonna go ahead and lope around on the wrong lead, and I spank him with my stick on the outside on that right, and he went ahead and changed it for me, and I got really lucky over there. But look, up to this point, we have been spanking him on the outside hip to let him know for the direction we want to go. And I go ahead and lope him quietly through. I'm not going to rush him. If he wanted to speed up, we would just kind of lope here until he was ready to be quiet again. So now I'm going to get ready to change the bend. And we're going to go on the wrong lead for a little bit, spank on that outside hip, and we get the switch, okay? Now, I was also using my outside leg there. I was leaning to the outside, lean away from all leads and all turns, all circles, lean away. So it allowed him to take that lead. Now, I'm going to go ahead and lope him a couple of circles this direction. Again, I don't want him to anticipate. And that's the beauty of being able to ride out in a big open space, is you can make the lead change wherever you want it. It doesn't have to happen right in the middle of your arena like it does when you're riding specifically in the arena. Now he took it really nice this time. Usually after they get it a couple of times one direction or another, they really start to figure out what you're looking for without a whole lot of help. And it helps that this horse has a lot of natural ambition already and some natural forward, and he has some natural elevation. He wants to elevate and kick that hip over for me. And I think he was starting to get tired right there. You can do that, and I've warned against that before. You don't want to keep on doing this when they're really tired. So I just broke him down. I didn't make a big deal about it. Broke him down to a trot. Pet him a little bit, picked up the correct lead. You also don't want to let them lope around on the wrong lead for a long amount of time either, because that's going to create bad habits. Remember the old rule, you know, it takes forever to develop a good habit, and it only takes one time to develop a bad habit. So we're going to go ahead and get two really good ones here, and I'm going to quit on this note. And he's already starting to look for stop with me. You know, I'm going to lope him here another lap, but I'm having to drive him forward a little bit harder than I was before, and I'm going to quit on this note right here. And I don't ever want to pull them into the ground. When you pull them into the ground really hard, you tend to get that prop stop where the front end just bounces and thuds you really hard. And I don't want to do that with him. I want to keep that paddling front end on him. So I will always pull my colts into a stop from a trot rather than from a lope or a gallop straight to a stop. I like the way this colt wants to walk around quietly and play game over after all of that. It tells me he learned something today. It also tells me that I did a good job explaining it to him as well. Remember that crabby dog that didn't want to go riding with me earlier? Look at him all happy now. He acts like he did something. This tree line is right at the end of my arena, south of it, and it always makes for a nice long walk back home to cool them out. And Charlie and Weatherby love riding through here with me. They love flushing out rabbits and pheasants out of this tree line. And it's great for the colts because they get desensitized real quick. Weatherby does end up flushing out a pheasant here, and I'm going to unmute this clip coming up so you can kind of hear the pheasant and him squawking as he flies away. And this colt does spook a little bit, but I do put him in an emergency stop and handle it. So for a second, the camera is going to go funny because JD tried to get it on video, the pheasant flying through the air. Again, another opportunity to practice a good emergency stop. Now, there are times that I've had horses just flat spook at stuff like that. I mean, and they are on a dead run. And there is a fence line at the bottom of this road here that they could run into. And so I have to be careful of those types of things. And I think we all need to be careful and conscious of those types of things. So having that emergency stop is just of so much importance to me. I can't emphasize that enough. Again, we have more practice of riding near a road but not directly on the road, so there's a little bit of safety involved here. You know, we do have to deal a little bit with traffic that does drive by, but they're not directly on us, and unless they swerve out of control, we don't really have a chance of getting run over by a grain truck or something of that nature. I like being able to use this little road ditch here to do that. Oh look, more video evidence of Weatherby actually being happy and glad that he chose to ride out and acting like it was his idea all along. I'm going to go ahead and ride him over the bridge today, but I'm not going to stop there and dismount. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next thing I want to teach him, which is dragging a log. So we're not going to quit after the bridge. We're going to quit after he drags a log today. Okay, we've officially made this Becky Amio's dog, cat, and horse show with Remy's little appearance up there on top of the tack room. So I always dismount and grab my log just like this. I usually start this way, and then eventually I get to where I put my rope and hang it somewhere on a fence somewhere so I can just ride up to it. But I start out this way. For folks at home that sometimes have a struggle getting up into the saddle, sometimes it's because of weight, sometimes it's because of knees, I want you to see how I mount it up there. I grab a hold of the mane with that inside rein as I pull myself up rather than holding on to the entire saddle, because if I hold on to the entire saddle, even at my weight, I'm going to slide that saddle over to the side. So if you can, or if your horse has enough mane and they will tolerate it, I try to grab mane with that hand that I'm holding the rein with as I mount up, whether it's either side. Now when I first start to drag, I don't necessarily want it to really pull on his hip that hard, and it's not a lot of weight. It's just something that he knows is there behind him, that it's not pulling on him at all. It's not going to hurt him. I want him to get the experience of feeling something being dragged behind him, hearing it, seeing it, feeling the rope touch his butt. When I walk this way, he gets that full experience visually, but he's not dealing with the rope coming around his hip. Going back the other direction, I allow it to touch his hip. Now sometimes this is where horses spook at it and they grab their butt and I have to drop the rope and everything else. This guy's handling it really well. So I'm going to quit on this note, and every time that I drag something, I always stop by stopping, turning on the forehand, facing up to whatever he's dragging, and back him up a few steps. This is a technique that he would have to know how to do if he were in the branding pen. When you drag a calf out of the branding pen, they have to stop and back up, and sometimes they hold that calf while a wrestler is holding the calf on the ground, or sometimes they have to hold that calf in an iron fork while the ground crew works that calf. So he needs to be able to know how to hold it and experience something pulling on the ground right in front of them and visually seeing that. Alright, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I want to encourage you guys to like this video and to share it, especially the folks that are members of the Blue Valentine and the Hancock groups, because I think we need to get an awareness out there that these horses aren't broncs, they aren't mean. It's how they're started, it's their disposition, it's how they're bred. You know, everybody has a chance to a good start, and they'll turn out to be pretty nice individuals, and I try to treat them all as individuals. So I think we need to get some awareness out there that these are pretty darn good horses, and they've got a ton of ability and a ton of try. And I mean, look at the bone in the foot on this horse. He is going to be something special when he grows up. So I'm really looking forward to a lot more time with him, but we only have 7 rides left, so I'm going to have to figure out what we're going to do from here on out. So I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and we'll see you next ride. Thanks for watching.